Imagine for a moment that someone close to you is going to tell you a lie today. Not a stranger. Not someone on the internet. Someone you know. Someone you trust. Now here's the unsettling part: there's a good chance you won't even realize it happened. Most people move through their day accepting what they hear at face value. They assume others are being honest. They trust the stories they're told. But the reality is far more complicated. Small lies, half-truths, and carefully crafted stories surround us every day. What if you could see through them? What if you could recognize the signs before the lie had a chance to fool you? This isn't really about catching bad people. In fact, some of the people you care about most may lie from time to time. A friend might bend the truth about where they spent the evening. A family member might deny eating the leftovers you were saving. Even a manager might give you a reason for a decision that isn't the whole story. The truth is simple: everyone lies. And if you don't know how to spot it, you're forced to navigate a world where appearances aren't always reality. The good news is that investigators, detectives, and intelligence professionals have spent decades studying deception. Over time, they've developed powerful techniques that reveal when something isn't quite right. Today, you'll learn some of their most effective methods. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to spot warning signs that most people completely miss. Let's begin with a technique I call the magic question. Most people unknowingly make lying easy. They ask simple questions that require simple answers. Did you have fun last night? Did you go out yesterday? Questions like these give someone plenty of room to hide behind a quick response. But skilled investigators take a different approach. Instead of asking, "Did you go out last night?" they might ask, "What kept you out so late last night?" Notice what happened there. The question assumes the event already occurred. Now the other person must either correct the assumption or create a story to support it. And creating a believable story is often where deception begins to crack. But that's only the beginning. The next technique is known as the 5-second rule. Think of it as a brief window into what's happening beneath the surface. When you ask an important question, pay close attention during the first 5 seconds that follow. Not 4. Not 6. 5. Why? Because that's when a person's brain is working hardest to formulate a response. After a few moments, many people can construct a convincing answer. But during those first few seconds, their body may reveal information they haven't managed to hide. Perhaps they suddenly touch their face. Maybe they glance away. Maybe there's an unusual pause. Maybe their voice changes in a way that feels out of character. One sign alone means very little. But when several appear together, it's worth paying attention. Even people who believe they're excellent liars often struggle to control every signal their body sends. Now let's move to one of the most powerful techniques of all: establishing a baseline. Before you can recognize unusual behavior, you need to know what normal behavior looks like. Pay attention to how someone acts when they're relaxed and comfortable. Notice how quickly they speak. Watch their posture. Observe their eye contact and hand movements. This becomes their baseline. Once you know what's normal, changes become much easier to detect. If someone who usually maintains eye contact suddenly avoids your gaze, that matters. If a naturally energetic speaker becomes unusually slow and cautious, that matters too. You're no longer judging them against a generic standard. You're comparing them to themselves. And that makes all the difference. The next technique is known as the double-check trap. It's surprisingly simple. Ask about the same event more than once, but approach it from different angles. You might first ask, "You went to the movies yesterday, right?" Then later in the conversation, casually ask, "What movie did you watch yesterday?" People telling the truth usually remain consistent because they're recalling a real memory. Liars have a harder job. They're trying to remember details they invented. And invented details have a habit of changing. Over time, inconsistencies begin to appear. One answer no longer matches another. And that's often where the truth starts to emerge. Another powerful clue can be found in the words people choose. Listen carefully. When people feel uncertain or uncomfortable, their language often changes. Instead of speaking directly, they begin using phrases like maybe, I think, probably, I guess. Rather than saying, I was at home, they might say, I think I was probably at home. Notice how much weaker that sounds. It's almost as if they're leaving themselves an escape route in case they're challenged later. These words don't automatically mean someone is lying. But when an important claim is surrounded by hesitation and uncertainty, it's worth paying attention. Now let's talk about something called the topic switch. This is one of the clearest signs that a conversation is entering uncomfortable territory. When people feel pressure, they sometimes try to escape the subject entirely. Suddenly they bring up something unrelated. Did you see that video everyone is talking about? Oh, that reminds me of something funny. The conversation takes an unexpected turn. Why? Because their mind is searching for an exit. They want distance from the topic that's making them uncomfortable. When this happens, gently guide the conversation back. Stay calm. Stay curious. And watch how they respond. The next technique is especially effective because it disrupts the mental effort required to maintain a false story. It's called the interrupt technique. Imagine someone is describing an event. They're explaining exactly what happened, step by step. Then suddenly, you interrupt with a question about something that happened before the story began. Wait a second. What were you doing right before that? Now their brain has to shift directions. Someone recalling a genuine memory can usually do this without much difficulty. But someone managing a fabricated story often struggles. Details become fuzzy. The timeline changes. Or they become noticeably confused. Because keeping track of a made-up narrative requires much more mental effort than remembering something that actually happened. Finally, there's a technique known as the false detail trap. And it's surprisingly revealing. While discussing someone's story, casually introduce a detail that isn't true. For example, you might say, so that's when it started raining, even though they never mentioned rain. Someone describing a real experience will often correct you immediately. No, it wasn't raining, but someone relying on a fabricated story may simply accept the detail and continue. Why? Because they're focused on protecting the story, not the accuracy of the memory. And that's where mistakes happen. So there you have it. 7 powerful techniques that can help you recognize deception more effectively. But remember something important. No single sign proves a person is lying. Human behavior is complex. People become nervous for many reasons. The real skill lies in observing patterns, noticing inconsistencies, and paying attention when multiple clues appear together. Trust your observations. Trust your instincts. And most importantly, stay curious rather than judgmental. The goal isn't to catch people. The goal is to understand what's really happening beneath the surface. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which of these techniques surprised you the most? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more insights into human behavior, psychology, and the hidden patterns that shape our everyday lives. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.